Hello everyone, I'm Asher Westrop-Evans and today is November 6th, 2024. This is the live daily briefing of the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office, and we're live on Instagram, X, YouTube and LinkedIn, and are available afterwards wherever you get your podcasts. Please start submitting questions in the chat, and as always, like and subscribe in order to help us to reach out to that wider global audience. Now, there's been a lot of news in the past 24 hours. The Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has appointed a new Defense Minister, Israel Katz, and a new Foreign Minister, Gideon Sa'ar. Now, many people around the world are asking what this means for them and, frankly, for Israel. However, what the world really needs to understand is that regardless of who is at the helm, Israel continues to fight for its survival in an ongoing seven-front war. Israel's message to the world today is, frankly, the same message as it was yesterday. Hamas must be dismantled. The hostages must be returned, and Hezbollah must be pushed back. These are our guiding principles at the Israeli Citizen Spokesperson's Office. Now, Iran's war on Israel continues. Today, Iran's terror army in Lebanon, Hezbollah, again tried to murder me and millions of other people in Israel. At precisely 11:23 this morning, as I was preparing for today's broadcast over a cup of coffee, phones around our office began buzzing and ringing, alerting to a rocket attack somewhere in the country. "Don't worry," said one colleague. "It's on the other side of Tel Aviv, the city in which we currently operate." The other side of Tel Aviv. We may have gotten used to it here in Israel, but frankly, let's be clear, this is not normal. Now, of course, within moments, our area, as well as much of central Israel, was also told to seek shelter as missiles fired from Lebanon came towards Israel's cities, with deadly intent. Hezbollah and their Iranian backers continue to try their best to murder me and all Israelis. Hezbollah has fired nearly 16,000 Iranian rockets, missiles, and drones at us since they joined Hamas in trying to kill us over a year ago on October 8th. Now, over 60,000 people can't return home. That's why so many of my friends and neighbors left their families, their jobs, and put on fatigues in order to fight to push Hezbollah away from us. The UN failed to prevent this war. UN troops in Lebanon allowed Hezbollah to fortify positions right on our border against UN Security Council Resolution 1701. UN troops in Lebanon did not disarm Hezbollah from its weapons, including hundreds of thousands of rockets. And UN troops in Lebanon did not stop Iran from continuing to ship tons of weapons to Hezbollah in Lebanon from bases across the frontier in Syria. Israel yesterday struck Hezbollah's weapon facilities in Syria for the third time this week. And Israel's citizen soldiers are pushing Hezbollah away from our homes and bit by bit disarming them. Because frankly, no one else did it. Now, whatever comes next, our friends and allies will need to support our efforts to create a new reality in the region, and to ensure that Iranian rockets are no longer lobbed at anyone else. As Israel acts to prevent Hamas from redeploying in Gaza, we've also ensured a steady stream of aid into the Strip. There is now more aid entering Gaza today after Hamas's October 7th massacre than entered before it. Just yesterday, Kogat, Israel's agency responsible for administering aid into Gaza, reported that 206 truckloads of aid were collected. That's 3 times the daily average of 60 to 70 that went in before the war began. And more important than what aid is entering is the aid that isn't being distributed once it's inside Gaza. There are over 600 truckloads of aid awaiting collection on the Gazan side of the border. The aid is still waiting to be collected. It's piling up inside Gaza because international humanitarian organizations have not done their jobs. International aid organizations should tell the truth about the situation in Gaza. They should stop blaming Israel for the effects of Hamas's decision to fail their people by continuing to wage war instead of helping in any way to support and rebuild inside Gaza. This is the key message that we need to take away today. But now let's take some questions from our audience watching live on social media.
Thank you, Asher. There's many questions of this nature on our Instagram Live. What is Israel expecting from an incoming Trump administration?
Well, as we record this daily briefing, it's become clear that the Trump administration has won the US elections according to the Associated Press and others. And frankly, what Israel expects is a continuation of the relationship that Israel and the United States have had for decades now. A relationship of support, a relationship of mutual understanding, a relationship of the recognition that the importance of liberal democratic ideals are critical to the survival of Israel and the survival of Western civilization as a whole throughout this region, throughout the world, and against the likes of Iran and others who would try and break that alliance, who would try and break down those principled democratic ideals for which we stand here in Israel. And whoever sits in the White House, we would expect that exact same guiding principle would continue to build, develop, and grow the relationship between Israel and the United States, as it has done so for so many decades.
This is a question from L on our Instagram Live. If UN Resolution 1701 is finally implemented, will Hezbollah still have rockets that can reach Tel Aviv?
An important question, and certainly, yes, they will. Hezbollah has shown the capacity with ballistic missiles being fired in the past, with rockets that can reach deep, deep inside Israel. Fortunately, Israel has a fantastic missile defense shield that is able to block much of that incoming rocket fire, but it's not enough to sleep safely in our beds at night. As I said, just earlier today, I was forced, among millions of others here in this country, to take shelter from Hezbollah rockets being fired at us. And unfortunately, a move back to the Litani River would not necessarily negate that risk, but it would help create some sense of buffer, some sense of safety, and give us more advanced warning, particularly for communities living in the north of Israel who come under daily, regular rocket fire and threat. This is an unbearable reality, and Israel will not give up parts of its sovereign territory in order to allow for that buffer. What needs to happen is Hezbollah, this militant terrorist army, needs to be pushed away, to be removed from this border, and not be allowed to operate freely in this space, despite what UNIFIL was supposed to do, or the UN mission that was supposed to be put in place, that was supposed to protect this area from Hezbollah militancy, what they failed to achieve in the years up until this year.
This next question is about Iran's nuclear program. A former senior official in Iran, Larijani, said that if a need arises in the future, Iran would be within a short distance of achieving a nuclear bomb. What are your thoughts on this Iranian statement?
This is a very real and serious threat. The idea of Iran being a nuclear-armed state and all the risks that are posed from that tyrannical, authoritarian, theocratic regime who may decide that it is their will to take action that would ensure the sort of mutually assured destruction that hasn't been doctrine across the world since the Cold War era. It's a frightening prospect. It's a real threat, but it is something that Israel, the US, and other allies hopefully will continue to find an intolerable ideal and continue to fight back against, because Iran cannot be allowed to become a nuclear-armed state, to join that club of nations that pose such absolute threat over the world to ensure ensured destruction at a whim, at the press of a button. Iran cannot be allowed to join that club for the risks that they pose, that they've shown that they're willing to enact with their proxy ring of resistance, a ring of militancy, I call it, that they've developed around Israel at the moment. And we're facing here with the 7 fronts attacking us here within Israel. If they had the nuclear capacity behind that sort of initiative, well, things would only get worse and more deadly from there. But Israel will ensure that does not come to pass.
As I'm looking for the next question, I'm seeing red alert sirens go off on my phone that there are rocket attacks on the villages on Israel's northern border with Lebanon. Are the evacuees, the 60,000 evacuees, any closer to returning home?
If there was ever proof of a sort of lived reality that exists here in Israel right now, that's the fact that right now, as we record this daily briefing, there are ongoing rocket attacks happening in Israel's north, impacting these communities. As we said, over 60,000 Israelis who for over a year now have been unable to return to their homes, who frankly may not have homes to return to at this point, with so many villages, towns, kibbutzim, whatever else that have been so battered, destroyed, demolished and attacked. And those poor Israelis that are left, who stay for necessity or to try and keep some sense of their livelihood open under constant threat of rocket fire. It is frankly intolerable, and this is what Israel is fighting for inside Lebanon, fighting against Hezbollah, their militant regime, and their willingness to fire arbitrarily at civilians, civilian communities, and to put civilian lives at risk, whether it be civilians inside Lebanon who are at threat thanks to Hezbollah's militancy, or whether it be, of course, civilians in Israel who have faced that constant threat and those 60,000 removed. We can only hope that that status quo isn't maintained for much longer. But frankly, as it stands now, Israel is fighting its hardest to ensure that that isn't maintained, and that Israelis and Lebanese, frankly, will be able to return safely to their homes without this lingering threat of Hezbollah's militancy hanging over them.
This is our final question today. Can you comment on the general atmosphere in Israel and the mood of the public, and how you're feeling and your sense of optimism or pessimism in the weeks and months ahead?
It's a broad question. I will say there is a sense of optimism in this country, as ever there is. Israelis have a resilient spirit. We are fighters. We are willing to keep pushing forward, whatever the lived reality may be. But as I said earlier, it can be very easy in this country to develop a sense of normalcy, to say things, banal statements like, oh, the sirens for the deadly rockets that are being fired, oh, they're on the other side of the city, rather than being right here, and to make that feel like a sense of normalcy, that friends, loved ones, family will be fighting in uniform, people who would rather be in day jobs, working in industries to help support the Israeli economy, to help build and develop a brighter future for this country, are being forced into uniform on the front lines to be needlessly killed thanks to these militant terrorist armies. So we do retain a sense of broad optimism for the future and what comes to Israel, but hopes for return of the hostages, that those displaced peoples can be returned to their homes, and that everyone can return to a sense of peace and normalcy. But we are obviously very aware of the realities of what's happening around this region, thanks to Iranian proxies and their militant, hateful intent all across the region. All right, well, that is all we have time for in today's daily briefing. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. We'll be back tomorrow at 3 p.m. Israel time. That's 8 a.m. East Coast, as we continue to bring you all the latest and updates from Israel and around the region. I've been Westrop-Evans. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is DaJobnik signing off.